What's up, y'all? It's your girl QueensteezTV, and I am back. But this time I'm back with a story time about the time I got left at the movies while I was on a date. So if y'all want to hear about this crazy story, stay. So y'all, before I get started, let me get something because I ain't never got played with like this in my life. Yes. Pull it up, pull it up. Watch it off. Let me get this ready because oops. So y'all, I don't even know what it's okay, so let me just start from the beginning. Alright, so I met this guy, and I'm not changing his name in the story because he shouldn't have left me at the movies. His name is Devin. So I met this guy named Devin or whatever. He was cool. This probably happened like 2.5 years ago. So he was cool. We went out on a couple dates or whatever. When I met him, he was telling me like, oh, I own this restaurant and all this stuff. So I took his word for it because, I mean, you know, you meet people like, basically, you don't have no reason to lie to me. So when he said he owned a restaurant, I was like, okay, cool. I was like, well, where's the restaurant at? So, y'all, he told me it was on Pennsylvania Avenue. If you're from Baltimore, that's all I'm gonna say. So I was like, okay. I was like, you own a restaurant by yourself? I was like, oh, because you're kind of young. So he was like, yeah, it's my restaurant, this and that. So mind you, it was not a restaurant. First of all, it was a carry out. And it was like this little Muslim place. So he was Muslim. So I was like, okay, cool. So like the first time we went out, it was fine. It was something a little slight. Like we just met each other. He was cool. We talked. Like everything was fine. We went out again. Everything was cool. So then that's when he started telling me like, he was like, oh, come down to my restaurant. So I pulled up on him at a restaurant and he came out and like we talked whatever in the car. And then he was like, all right, well, let me get back in here to my employees. Boy, they was not your employees. Like, you played. So I was like, okay. Being that he claimed that this restaurant was his, like, after this time, I figured out, like, you did not own the restaurant. But he used to be playing a role, so I worked at a hospital that was, like, not far from his restaurant. So I used to just have him bringing lunch for me and all my homegirls. Like, duh. If you got somebody that own a restaurant. So I don't know if he was paying for the stuff out of his own pocket or, like, how that was going down. But, yeah, he used to just bring lunch down there for me and my folks that I was working with. So one day I went to the restaurant after he told me to come down there. And I was like, oh, can you come outside? He was like, I'm in the back cutting chicken. So I was like, okay, not saying that if you own a restaurant, you can't be, you know, cutting chicken. Because all business owners know that, you know, sometimes you got to put the groundwork in, right? So then I was like, you cutting chicken. So even if I know I'm the boss and I'm cutting chicken and I know I tell somebody to come somewhere, like, you know, I'm going to take my gloves off. I'm going to take my little chicken cutting gloves off and, you know, clean my meat cleaver and I'm going to, you know, come outside because if you're the boss in the establishment, like, you can just tell one of your workers, like, hey, finish cutting this chicken for me real quick. So he was like, oh, give me a minute, give me a minute. So while he was saying, give me a minute, I had just went in the restaurant. So I went in the little, let me stop calling it a restaurant. I went in the carry out. So I was like, Devin in here? So they was like, yeah, he in the back cutting chicken. So I'm like, the workers wasn't giving, this is my boss. Like, they was giving, like, he was another worker. So I was like, okay, whatever. He playing this boss role. So I ordered something from the restaurant, paid for it, and I went back in my car. So by the time I got my food, he came outside. So he was like, yeah, I know I've been working a lot. He was like, let's go to the movies. So I was like, okay, cool. We get to the, hold on, I'm going too fast. So he paid for the movie tickets prior to us going in. And I was like, all right, I'll just meet you at the movies. Because when I go on dates with people that I just know, you can't drive me nowhere. Like, no, you can't drive me nowhere. I drive myself. I'll meet you there. So I met him out at the movies. So the only thing that was different this time was he was driving a different car. So the first time we went out, he had like a black 4-door Honda. The second time we went out, he had like a red Altima. But this time when he came, he had, I think it was like a black, that like little Honda hatchback car kind of. I don't know what it's called, but he had one of those. So I was like, okay, why every time I see him, he got a different car? So I was like, all right, I'm like, whatever. So this time we went to the movies. It was like a whole bunch of people there. I forgot what movie was releasing, but it was like a popular movie. So the movies was crowded. So I was kind of like, planted to the left because I ain't really wanted to be given like, we was together because, when people see you out with guys, they automatically assume like, oh, y'all dating. And like, no, I was still very much single. No, we was, kicking it. Like it wasn't, no. So, I was like walking a couple steps behind them to the side. So the movie was paid for. Let me take a sip. So the movie was already paid for. So I was like, okay, let me be nice. And I was like, okay, do you want something from the snack bar? So he was like, no, I'm cool. So I was like, okay. He was like, nah, but you could get what you want. So I really don't eat movie food. Like I don't want no damn popcorn crunching all loud. I don't want no nasty ass nachos from the movie. So I might have got some candy or something. So I went to movies. I went to go sit down. Well, we went to go sit down. So he saw somebody that he knew, and he was like, oh, hey, what's up? So I didn't think nothing of it because I was seeing people that I knew, and I was like, oh, hey, I wasn't giving all that. It was just like, all right, what's up? I see you out. Cool. So we go sit inside the movies, and he sit down, and he was like, he looked at his phone, and he was like, and started like feeling around. So I was like, what's wrong? And he was like, damn, I think I dropped my wallet. So I was like, okay, like where you think you dropped your wallet at? He was like, I don't know. I'm gonna go look out. Out, I guess, in the little comment area or whatever. So I was like, all right. I was like, well, you want me to come with you so I can help you look? He was like, no, I don't want to, disturb you from watching the movie. He was like, you could just sit right there. So I was like, okay. I was like, all right. I was like, well, let me know if you find your wallet or whatever. Why he left out to go look for the wallet and never came back? So I'm sitting there. The previews go through. So I'm like, what the hell? And he wasn't thorough or nothing. Like he had on like some slacks and a polo, like mind you. So I'm like, all right, this taking a minute. So I text him. I'm like, you good? No answer. So the movie comes on. So now I'm like, okay, like, what the fuck? Text him again. I'm like, yo, did you find your wallet? Nothing. Radio silence. So I call him. I'm like, phone just ringing. So I'm like, yo, what the hell? So now I'm getting panicked because some things in my life had happened that had me like a little bit worried. So I'm like, okay, he ain't answering the phone. So I'm like, did he get beat up or something? So I'm thinking he went outside, and it was like a lot of people. It was kids. You know how teenagers be like real rowdy. So I was just like, maybe he seen somebody with his wallet and was like, yo, get my wallet. And I'm like, maybe somebody popped them. And, he probably was like outland in the bushes. I didn't know. So I'm like, oh my goodness. I'm like, yo, what happened to this boy? So then something told me was like, Go look for him. So I get up and I went in a little lobby and I'm like looking around and I was like, okay, I'm like, he ain't out here. So I was like, well, let me go see if I see him in the parking lot, like, or if he in the bushes. Because I don't know, like, kids and teenagers these days is like really unpredictable, and the kids these days will tear you up. Like, they will fight you. They do not care. They don't have no respect. Well, not all of them, but some kids just don't have no respect for adults at all. So I'm like, let me make sure this boy ain't get beat up or he outside and I'm sitting here watching a movie all willy-nilly. So I go outside and I like, look around. I like walk down where he had parked at. The car was gone. So I was like, you know what? I'm about to go back in here and watch the movie because I really don't have time to be playing with nobody's son right now. So I went back in and I finished watching the movie. Oh my goodness. I wish I remember what movie it was because the movie was long. It was at least like 2 hours. I don't remember what movie it was, but it was a long movie. So I sat through the whole movie and I was just in my head like, yo, I know you just did not get played like that. Like, I couldn't believe it. I was like, yo, he played me for real. So then when I was leaving, I texted him again. So I'm like, yo, you good? Because I'm just thinking in my mind, like, even if you did have an emergency, like, what would it be for you to just text and be like, yo, something came up, like, I had to dip, or, I had an emergency, whatever. Still, he ain't say nothing. So I call him. I'm like, what happened? Like, where is you at? What's going on? So I was like, you know what? Whatever. I went to work the next day. So one of my friends, she was like, oh, how was the movie? Da, da, da. I was like, girl, why he left me at the movies? And she was like, what you mean he left you at the movies? I was like, well, explain the story. I was like, we went, he paid for the stuff, we got snacks, he claimed he lost his wallet, he left out and never came back. So I was like, damn, I'm like, at this point, I was like, I'm really actually kind of worried. Like, I was just like, I just want to know, like, nothing happened to him. Because then I'm like, I'm sitting here all willy-nilly. If something happened to the boy, like, I'm going to feel crazy being like, yeah, you sat in the movie the whole time, didn't, whatever. So my homegirl, Nicole, y'all, she is crazy, but that is my girl. She was like, what? She was like, I don't like that. She was like, what's his number? I was like, Nicole, what you want his number for? She was like, because I'm about to call him. She was like, because nothing happened to him. She was like, he's playing games. So I was like, all right. So I gave her his number. Why she dialed the number and he picks up the phone? Hello? I was like, oh, bitch, I know you fucking lying to me. He was like, what you talk? I said, you know what, Devin? Click, hung up. So he texting her phone back. He like, no, just answer your phone. I was like, yo, stop calling my phone. I was like, 'cause this is my work phone. I was like, stop. So then he started hitting my cell phone. So he like, answer the phone. I just need, I can explain. Let me talk to you. So I was like, yo, I pick up the phone. I'm like, look, I'm thinking you did somewhere, something happened to you, and you playing around. You don't answer me. I said, I ain't asked you all to explain what was going on. All you had to do yesterday is say something came up, and that would have been the end of that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm very understanding. People who have family emergencies, whatever, like, that's all you had to say. So he was like, all right, well, I had to take care of something. So I was like, you couldn't have opened your mouth and said, oh, I had to take care of something? He was like, well, I could have, but I didn't. I was like, all right, yeah, you're right. I was like, all right, so bye. So I hung up. So he calls me back and he's like, so you're not gonna let me explain? I said, what is that for you to explain? Like, you could have explained yesterday. So don't try to explain after I called you 5 times, texted you, but then you don't answer the phone, but then you answer when I call from another number. Like, you're playing games. So he goes on to be like, oh, something came up. I was like, well, what came up? He was like, well, I don't really want to talk about what came up. I said, you know what? Just go ahead about your business. And the whole messed up thing about it all was he actually kind of was cool because he was a Gemini too. And I'm a Gemini. And it was actually kind of interesting talking to another Gemini because, you know, he was very intellectual. He was very intellectual. You know, he was just typical quirky Gemini. But the downside to that was everything that irritated me about him is probably stuff about me that irritates other people. So, like, when he pulled the whole movie stunt, I had to laugh about, like, it literally was so funny to me because I was just like, he just pulled a you on you. Because I'm super famous. Like, if I'm not feeling something, I'm out. See you, bye, be gone. I can't. So it literally was just so funny. So after I got off the phone with him, I was like, I couldn't deal. So I went in the lunchroom. And like I said, I was working at a hospital. So I don't know why there was so many people in the lunchroom this day. Because typically, everybody can't go on lunch at the same time. But it was like a nice group of people in the lunchroom. So I went in, I sat down. I kind of sat down. And I was just like shaking my head. And, you know, I wasn't drinking no drink, but I had a soda or something. And I just was like, whew. And everybody, they was like, what's wrong with you? You alright? I said, y'all would never believe what happened to me. And they was like, well, what happened? I said, why I got left at the movies yesterday? I'm thinking the man is dead somewhere because he told me he was going to go look for something. He never came back. I said, then I'm calling him, texting him. He don't answer the phone. But then I called him from somebody else's phone. And he picked up just, you know, just like everything was all right. So they was like, and I just bust out laughing because it was just funny. Like, this is probably like one of the most funniest things that has ever happened to me. And they was just kind of looking at me like, girl, what are you laughing at? And I just was like, it was funny. It was just funny. So people, they was like, if it was me, I would have cried or I would have felt. I was like, yo, I said, at this point, I can't do nothing else but laugh. But if anybody ever come in contact with Devin, he light skinned. I think he got like green eyes. Well, he had a porn stash when I was talking to him. Beware of Devin. So what I think actually happened was when we were out at the movies, he probably had his baby mother call. He probably seen one of her friends, and she probably texted him and was like, you better bring me my goddamn car back before it be some smoke in the city, because that's the only thing that would explain why he didn't want to tell me what came up. You know what came up. But whatever. It's all good. Now I just don't do movie dates no more. Period. No more movies. But yeah, it is what it is. That was just, you know, a little messed up, little time I got played. So y'all want to hear more story times? Let me know, because I got more stories. I do. Make sure that you go like, share, and subscribe to my channel. And hit the notification bell while you're at it, because I'm going to be dropping new content all the time. Thanks.
You know I ain't lying.